Week 13 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few defense DST units I would start this week. The first one, the Los Angeles Rams. So the Rams, a great matchup this week versus Cleveland Browns. 7th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. So we don't know who's going to start at quarterback for this Brown team. Joe Flacco or Dorian Thompson if he passes the concussion protocol. Or even P.J. Walker they could go back to. So right now, I know this Ram defense isn't what it was even 3-4 seasons ago when they won the championship. But Week 11 versus Seattle, 16 points allowed, 2 sacks, an INT in that one. And then Week 12 at Arizona in a plus matchup, 14 points allowed and 4 sacks. So right now, this defense, the last 2 weeks, they've definitely given up not many points. Only 16 and 14 points, which is a good sign. But this week here, depending on starting quarterback for this Cleveland Brown team, even if it's Thompson, Robinson once again, I think they could go out there and play a good game as this Los Angeles Ram team. So right now is a streaming option in the start this week. The next one's the Miami Dolphins. So the Miami Dolphins this season, when they've had plus matchups, have gone out there and they played good football. And we saw it last week versus the New York Jets, including a 99-yard pick six before halftime on a Hail Mary. So the last 2 weeks versus bad offenses for this Miami D. Week 11 versus the Raiders, 13 points allowed, 2 sacks, 3 INTs. And Week 12 at the Jets, 7 points allowed, 7 sacks, 2 interceptions. And like I said, that pick six for 99 yards off the Hail Mary. So this week here, good matchup at the Commanders that give up the 5th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. I know the Commanders, they got good weapons. I know Sam Howell's been a pretty good quarterback this season, but we saw it last week. Cowboys had a pick six. They sacked Sam Howell a decent amount of times where I think Miami could get to him, led by Bradley Chubb a few times as well, sacking him. And this week here, like I said, this Dolphin team, if they get off to an early start and they make this Commander offense one-dimensional like the Cowboys did last week, that's where they could tee off and really get fantasy points up there. The next DST is the Indianapolis Colts. So the Colts, another streaming option as well. And they got a great matchup this week here is the Indianapolis Colts versus one of the worst offenses in the league in the Tennessee Titans. So right now, this Colt team, the last couple weeks, they've actually put up some fantasy games. Week 9 at Carolina, 13 points allowed, 4 sacks, 3 interceptions, 2 touchdowns with 2 pick sixes by Moore in that one. Week 10 in New England, 6 points allowed, 5 sacks, 2 interceptions. And Week 12 versus Tampa Bay, they made Baker a crash test dummy for the most part in that one. 20 points allowed, 6 sacks, an INT, and a fumble recovery. So this week here, like I said, with a good matchup at Tennessee, one of the worst offensive lines in the league, and a team that really don't put points on the board, that give up the 12th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. I got the Colts as a start. The next start, the Los Angeles Chargers. So the Chargers this season, in streaming type of games versus bad offenses, they rose to the occasion and played well. So the last few weeks, they really haven't done much. But the last streaming option game for this Charger team was Week 9 at the Jets, where 6 points allowed, 8 sacks, 3 fumble recoveries, including a punt return touchdown. So right now, this week here, good matchup at the Patriots. 3rd most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. Mac Jones, he's been a train wreck all season. Bailey Zapp possibly could be the starter going into this one, but it doesn't matter who's the starting quarterback for this Patriot team. They just can't move the football, and they've been turning the football around all season. He pretty much only good pieces on this roster right now on offense is Ramondre Stevenson and Demario Douglas, but Douglas left the game as well in Week 12 in that loss at the Giants, so we'll see if he even plays. So right now, with a great matchup, and Charger team coming off of 2 tough losses in a row, I think they go out there and bounce back and be led by the defense in this one. And the 5th and final defense DST unit I look to start this week is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers all season, one of the better defenses in the league in terms of giving up points per game. I know they don't get a lot of turnovers or not many sacks, but they make plays when they need to, and they've been a solid unit. Week 10 versus Green Bay, 19 points allowed, a sack, 2 INTs, a block kick. Week 11 at the Browns, 13 points allowed, a sack and an interception. And Week 12 at the Jake Browning Bengals, 10 points allowed, 4 sacks and interceptions. So this week, a good matchup versus the Arizona Cardinals that give up the 10th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. So right now, I think they could get to Kyler Murray a few times in this game. Murray's good for a pick or 2 per game as well, where sometimes he's just gunslinging and trying to force things and make big plays happen, and that's where Murray gets in trouble. And this week in a home game for Pittsburgh, I exactly could see that go the Pittsburgh Steelers' way. And like I said this season, they only given up mid-teens, low 20s all season in all their games, and that's why they've been successful in squeaking out these games. So that's a few defense DST units I would start here for Week 13 of the fantasy football season.